when I was 15, I moved here. A lot of friends back home asked me how I made so many friends or how I'm just going around doing stuff because I was very shy. Yeah. And it's when I realized I'm my best asset and I don't have a degree. I don't plan on going to college for film at least. I decided I gotta be charming, you know, and meet people and make connections.
Hey, this is Ira. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Shapeshift podcast. This podcast is an excuse for me to talk to people who inspire me. And the people who inspire me are the people that I interact with and work with every day. They are fulfilling the visions for their own lives. Today's guest is Hailey Choi, who we originally brought on as a video editor, but quickly took on a lot of different roles. She designed our website. She's largely our creative director, for lack of a official title. She's shaping the DNA of Shapeshift in her very own way. One of the things that got me very excited about this conversation was how Hailey thinks about going after her creative visions, from an idea to taking first steps to exploring it, and also her relationship with her creative partner, A.J. Serrano, who's the founder of Haunted Basement. Haunted Basement is a film production company based in Brooklyn, and they're on their second short film. And one of the things that I'm really excited about for AJ and for Hailey is they're on their path to creating a company that works for them. So we talked about the different experiences they had raising money from individual investors for the first time. We explore the economics of making films today. And overall, we talked about different people that inspired them as well. So I really love this conversation. I'm really excited for you to dive in and learn as much as I did. You finished high school early. You came to New York pretty much by yourself. Your sister was...
Oh, my parents were here too. It was like a family move. My sister moved here and family was like, let's go too. Yeah.
I see. Okay, got it. But you didn't know anyone. It's like all of your friends were in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you find your way into that first set, or find your way into mustering the courage to talk to people, talk to strangers?
Well, I'm from LA and I moved to New York when I was fairly young, meaning 15-ish. And I finished school early, like high school early in LA before I moved to New York. And I always knew I wanted to do film, so I just dove right into it rather than going to school or anything. And I also had a couple of years left until technically you would apply for college. So I just went on a lot of NYU sets. I'm thankful that my sister went to NYU for cinema studies. And then through that, I got into a Facebook group, and then that changed my life because those friends I've met on the first set are my friends to this day, and some of them are getting married soon, and it's just really crazy.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned about this shoot, it was also something that many of your friends mentioned, was that you've sort of built a community around the things that you do and the way you work. That's a gift, and it's something that was mentioned repeatedly amongst the people that I spoke to that they were inspired by. How did that come about for you? Did you magically kind of just like find people, or was it more of like a process?
Definitely first few years here working and finally deciding to be more outgoing. It took a little bit of being depressed by being so alone that I decided, like, how do I make friends? And that's when I realized I'm very impatient, so I'm not just gonna wait for someone to ask to hang out. So I started being more forward with almost everyone in my life.
How old were you when you realized that you needed to go get what you wanted in terms of meeting friends and kind of like making your own destiny?
I guess when I was 15, I moved to New York and I had no friends. And then about a year after that of working a lot, but not having a social life, and my sister was always busy with college, I decided it's time to like make a bigger step. But I feel really lucky because I grew up, like when I was born, I feel like, not that I knew what I wanted to do, but I have more of an assured, or not assurance, more of a confidence in just like who I am and what I want to do. I always know what I want or don't want. Or when I'm indecisive, I can be very indecisive. But in terms of like the bigger life journey, I never feel afraid of not knowing what to do, because there's usually something I'm interested in that I want to go get and try out.
Yeah, I heard a lot of different stories around you creating presentations to like
Yeah.
convince your parents of
Yeah.
something. Like, where does that come from? Like, what do you feel? Is it in your body? Is it in your mind? Is it like just help me understand, where does that desire to get what you want come from?
I think maybe it's just being a younger child and feeling like you can get everything that you want. And not that I got everything that I want, but it's just there's less fear in asking, because I'm very, like I said, I'm impatient, so I would rather just ask and find out rather than wondering and wishing and putting a lot of your energy towards that. So I think I was, I guess, born that way, and then also as I grew up, it just became more solidified that I know what I want. Or at least when I know what I want, I will go and try to get it. And then be okay if it's a no, but why waste your time? Because my brain works fast, so I want to do a lot of things. So I'll try it out and I won't try it out. And that also led me to having a lot of different interests and hobbies and just enjoying trying things out and being good at them or bad at them.
Tell me how your mind works if you are interested in something and you're like, I want to go check it out. Is there like a recent hobby or a recent thing that you got into? Even like us working together, right?
Yeah. So ever since I started working in the video editing space and graphic design I also love doing, it still is a lot of hours on the computer, so I really miss more of my roots, which is drawing and painting and playing flute and piano. So I made a puppet for the first time, a little armature. There's like a little skeleton inside, and it was meant for a stop motion project with my creative partner. And we quickly learned that we're really not cut out for stop motion, or we need to learn a lot more to do it. But the fabrication of the little puppet, it's like this big, was so fun and came so naturally, and I like feeling good at something, and I was so proud of it. So he's in like a little plastic Chinese, I'm Korean, but I like these Chinese cookies, and he's like in like Snow White in this little container, and I'm proud of him. That's like an example of a craft that's just doesn't have to do with what I do for work.
And like, how did that idea get incepted into your brain? And then how did you go and problem solve and make the puppet and realize, stop motion is too complicated? Walk me through sort of how your brain worked throughout each of these steps.
Well, I've always loved stop motion, and I've always wanted to do it, so I've done it in like a very small scale and without the proper number of frames to make motion look natural, but it was still fun to do. But the little puppet was specifically made for my creative partner's and I's short film idea that never came to be, but that was just like an idea. He always has a spark, and then I get a spark too, and then we go after it and try to find out if it's worth anything or worth any more of our time and money. But this one was just like, okay, we want to try stop motion because it's too expensive to do as a physical shoot, so let's just try to create like a concept video of just not even 30 seconds of this little puppet riding through a dark ride. And so that's when we decided to just do puppets. And we built the puppets, and then, like I said, we were so happy with the puppet, like, oh my God, it looks great, expression wonderful. And then when it was time to shoot, just the two of us, we realized quickly we don't have the right software, we don't have the right equipment, and we don't know the math of how many frames you need. We try to do it as best as we can. We have a really scrappy test video of it, which I still like, but it's like one of those moments where you realize, like, I would rather leave it up to the professionals for this part, because we don't need to spend more time on this. Like, I'm happy we did it, but I'm glad that we learned and we'll move on.
So the two things that I picked up on when you were talking were you kind of have like a impatience or like a very quick way of going from idea to first attempt at it. And the second thing that I picked up on was, as you're trying to get there, you kind of like DIY, like a way to make that vision come to life in a very minimalistic way. Both things are hard for creative people and even people who don't identify as artists, people in like the business world where I'm in. For example, for me, like I, for a really long time, wanted to get into coffee, which was something that I really cared about or thought I cared about for a period of time. But it was something that I always pushed. I was like, later, later, later. Like, I'll do it one day. I'll do it one day. And then when I eventually did it, I realized, I spent 2 years in it, and I was like, I've fulfilled this part of me. And I almost wish I did that faster, because those like 5 years before, I don't want to say it was like wasted, but like, I wish I could fast forward that tape. Do you have advice or like thoughts around how other people can like adapt some of this mentality that you have? Were there particular experiences that gave you confidence to work the way that you do and do those two things that I think are really hard for most people?
The first thing is, I don't live life with the you only live once mentality. I'm not for that. I think it's a little reckless and could be, people do things in extremes, but I'm of the mentality, I like to say, why not now? And also, why not just try it out? Having the curiosity and staying curious is so important. That curiosity fuels the impatience to find out what it is, or what, if I'm good at it. And also, if you end up being good at something, which you won't know until you try, I don't know about other people, but I get like a rush of like, so good. And also, you feel a little cocky of like, oh, I'm so good at this. But I do enjoy, I think maybe because I've tried so many things, I was able to find a higher quantity of things that I think that I'm good at and enjoy, versus some people I do know who are more timid to try things or just don't have time for it. They sometimes say stuff like, I'm not an artist or whatever. And I really think everyone is an artist and a creative person. But I think the difference is, if you don't try as many things, just the pure numbers of it all, you'll have less of a percentage of being good at things because you just haven't tried as many. Be more curious, ask questions, and questions always lead to answers or opening some doors, which you would never know without asking.
What are some of those questions that you like to typically ask, or like when you do ask those questions, on the other side of question, like you alluded to, is like a new door or like a new answer. What is the answer or the door that you're searching for behind those questions?
Some people describe me as a cat. I'm very curious. I'm also nosy. So I think just wondering how things work, and also who's this person. But the more technical side of it comes from, I gotta credit my dad. He's very techie. He loves analog things, and he would buy clocks, take them apart, put them back together. I don't do that, but I did grow up seeing that and feeling like I have some sort of more curiosity to that side of the world, of living, because everything, like, I'm someone who, if we go anywhere, I see a lot of the details, and I also wonder, like, how the hell is that thing standing up there? How's that light there floating? I just wonder, because I know things, at least on Earth, are done with humans, like all these things that we build, and I think it's incredible. And I used to want to also be an architect. That's like all these different things I wanted to do that revolved around like the structure of how things are made.
What is your relationship with curiosity and time?
You never know when life is going to end for you, but I don't live life, like I said, I don't live life saying you only live once, but I do think if I have a lot of time, I'm almost on the other end of the spectrum where I feel so guilty when I'm not utilizing the time I have. And it took me maybe 7 years to accept and get comfortable with resting and enjoying and relaxing. Like, I used to not understand vacation. I thought it was the biggest waste of time and money. I'm just like, I can't believe we're just sitting at the beach, and I didn't like the beach. But after a hip accident from a set, I used to do a lot of art direction and lift heavy things. That forced me to literally not really move for half a year. And the beginning of it made me really restless because I always felt bad. Like, even though I'm injured, I feel so guilty that I'm not doing something with my time and moving forward, especially if I don't have a lot of things under my name or a degree. It made me think I'm wasting that time. But after the first 2 months, then I realized, no, this is like a sign to take a breath and kind of listen to that breath and see what comes out of this space. And so after that transition, it took a couple more years to calm down and be used to balance, because I used to be a workaholic. But after hitting, I think, my peak of most workaholic Hailey, that I really had headaches, stress headaches all the time, body ailments that was all due to stress, I decided I really need to take that mentality back of, it's okay if you're not doing anything now, because there's a time, I think the mentality changed from there isn't enough time to when the time is right, it's going to be right. So just kind of trust that process and flow with the time. And that led to the last few years of me being called like Zenly or Zen Hailey, because I'm a little too chill about everything. But after I accepted that mentality, I really enjoy things so much more, and yet have been even more busy than I've ever been.
I love what you said there about finding your rhythm and relationship with time and stress. Zen Hailey, can you tell me a little bit about how you structure your weeks or even your days to, I don't know, some people might call it balance. I don't know if you would characterize it as that. I'm just really curious how you sort of create that container.
I was a freelancer for a very long time, and then I still, even though I'm working with Shapeshift a lot, there's a lot of room in Shapeshift to encourage the people who work at this company to do other things. So I am able to do the other passions that I have, but that does make my schedule busier than it would be. But either way, I really think having intention about your time will just help, like mentally or writing it down, saying this time is for this time is for that. Day to day, I wake up earlier now, and that's natural. I wake up very early, and then there have been so many more projects this year than ever before. So I kind of accepted at the beginning of this year that this is my startup year. So I will put in more hours than I did the past few years when I really need to take a break. And even still, because I'm at a much healthier place with myself, it doesn't feel stressful or overwhelming, even though I am technically working every day of the week, all year.
And weekends.
And weekends, but it's not like a 9 to 5, unless it's like Shapeshift, but even still, like all my other passions, there's such a clear intention and reason I'm doing these things that it doesn't get kind of clouded with like, it's just to make rent, or it's just for this, or I'm chasing after, it's not that, it's more of I'm building something and I know it's going to take time and effort, so I'm kind of doing more of a tortoise. I call this year the tortoise year, and moving slow and steady, but definitely steady, and work every day. That has led to a year with not as many breaks or vacations, but in order to create some calm for myself, I really do allow myself to take some time in the day to just, if you feel that my headache coming on, then just stop, because then you have the next day and don't have to hit the deadlines the way I set for myself usually.
So is there like when you wake up, what do you do? Do you structure your day around certain haunted basement things, Shapeshift things?
Well, these days I do yoga, which is great.
Okay.
I didn't really exercise before. After my accident, I kind of fell off of it, but now this year I try to exercise a little bit every morning. I like having a schedule. I have a physical agenda that I write the night before. I mean, this is more type A of me. I write what I'm gonna do in what order. And I don't usually do the exact order unless it's a really busy day, because then things will slip out of my mind and I will run out of time or feel like I don't have enough time for things. But yeah, usually every night write down next day to-dos I know I have to do. And I like to structure like the morning to whatever passion project going on, and then during the work hours, typical 9 to 5, prioritize Shapeshift. And then, but because Shapeshift is the schedule also flows with that, there are pockets of time where I can put towards these passion projects. And then I don't mind working later, because it's all feels like I'm setting my schedule. So if I don't work as much on my day job, Shapeshift, during the day, then I will put a little bit of it towards the nighttime, and I really don't mind, because that's how I flow. I never liked the structure of schedule that is set by someone else. So school really gave me a lot of anxiety, and work gave me anxiety, and all that stuff. So this is my ideal. I'm really good at setting my schedule for my life and making sure I get it done. But I know a lot of people aren't like that, and that kind of becomes more of drags them down in life, and I know those people want to go back to a structured schedule. But I'm someone who feels so much better if I create my schedule, and there is a schedule. I'm not like waking up like, what should I do? Unless I have a day off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that I share, we're hiring people, and one of the things that I share when I speak with them in our interviews is we are very like high autonomy. But with high autonomy, you have to like create that container for yourself. we attract people who hold themselves accountable because they just can't not live up to their own standard. And so I think the people that like I love working with, and I think you do too, are the people who can create that container for themselves and find their energy and their creativity in the thing that they create. One of the sort of hard things about that, and I actually heard this from your friends that I spoke with, is setting boundaries. How do you set, your people, over and over again, I heard, Hailey is amazing at setting boundaries.
Really?
Yeah, so describe like...
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was just my sister who said that, but there are more people. Part of me knowing what I want and being curious also includes knowing what I don't want. So I really am if I don't set a boundary, then I feel like me as a person am being endangered of my energy and my space, which I'm not a high energy person, and I know where I want to put my time. So to me, it's like a no-brainer to it's like the reverse, the other side of the coin of saying, I know what I want, so just ask. It's the opposite. It's like, I know what I don't want, so I will just put it out there in a very, polite, respectful way. If I have boundaries, I'll be like, I'm not available this time every day. I have to just say that. I'm not going to change it. It's not going to budge. And I think saying that is just helpful to everyone, because then you can say that and the person can either take it or not. But if they take it, then that's wonderful. And if not, then maybe it's not right for you anyway. So I'm very protective of my energy. Yeah, because I know I don't have a lot of it.
Even as you're saying that, I feel my body is like, because I'm working on this, sometimes I feel like loose spaghetti. I don't want to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And like I will agree to things that I know I probably shouldn't agree to, or I will sort of like flex myself to fit into a certain schedule or, a certain deal. I've burned myself so many times by agreeing to things that were probably not long-term good for me. Do you have like advice for other people who are creatives or like work with other people, maybe in client services or whatnot? How do you get over not disappointing people?
It's from, like, when you were saying all that just now, it took me back to earlier days in New York. I've been here for 10 years, and the first 5 were rockier, as they should be, because you're learning new things about the city and yourself. But I learned it through experience too. Even though I just said, I know what I don't want, that doesn't mean that I was always confident enough to ask for what I don't want. And I learned from stretching myself too thin and having also disappointments in life. So it took like maturing through my experience to realize it's so much more easier for everyone if you just communicate. So I'm really big on communicating clearly, and I don't do it immediately all the time. I sometimes do still fall into my old habits of like, I'll just keep it in, and it's clearly just growing like a cancer that I realize it's like, just say it. I should have said it a year ago or 2 years ago or a day ago. So I catch myself when I let it go on too long, but just having clear communication, like I said earlier, it just will help everyone. Because if you don't say something, the other person won't know. And even half the time when you say something, the person will hear it differently.
Yeah.
So like, at least try to get it out there in their brains and their ears, and they'll interpret it in whatever way that they want. But cutting the bullshit will save me with I'm trying to just not speed things along. I'm just trying to get all the excess out, because it seems like such a energy drainer. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's advice, but it's definitely just communicate, because then it'll drain everyone else too if you don't say that you're burnt out, but you're not telling everyone around you.
One of the things I noticed about working with you is you set boundaries up front. And it's not only for yourself, but it's also for the different people that we'll work with. This is where sometimes there is like tension between us, because like I want the deliverable to look a certain way within a certain time frame. And you often push back in a positive way, where it's just like, we agreed to this, so like, let's stick to this. And I think we have like a very healthy negotiation. Are there certain techniques or preferences that like you tend to lean on up front to make sure all of that excess or is covered, and that not only you, but like the people that you work with are operating in a place where they can be excellent without sort of like sacrifice.
I guess with having a lot of respect for people's time and their energies, and having experienced not being respected with my time and my energy on other jobs, on many other jobs earlier in the day, like I said, that just makes me really protective, especially if they're my people, which so far we've been lucky enough to work with just our friends, but I'm sure we'll branch out. I'm excited to meet other people, but I'll still have the same protectiveness of knowing that it's not that you're a bad person and wanting all these deliverables. It's more like you literally don't know. So I'm just trying to get the vocabulary in your brain. And also with the boundaries, it's just, I'm someone who, I really hate empty promises. And I also hate breaking promises. So if that's like in a contract, which I always try to encourage people to write whenever they start different work, it's just to protect everyone from that awkwardness of feeling like, I can't say this, but I'm like, you literally put in your contract and you signed it. So stay true to it, or say that you're not following that. And that just helps, like, at least have like some sort of roadmap to like what we're trying to do. And I know things go back and forth or left and right, or weather changes, but I really think people should have someone who is kind of protecting them from being taken advantage of, even if it's not intentional, because a lot of things, like I said, things change, but if what you agreed to is changing because things change, I think it just should all be up to date so that it doesn't get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, you talk about contracts. You're in the film world. How does a film actually get made? What are the different contractual elements of it? It's very different from what we do. And I'm curious to get your perspective on that world, contrasting it to like this world.
Well, you say that it's so different, but I'm here always trying to tell you, Ira, that the company is turning into a production company. So I don't think it's that different, because if there's a camera and sound, that's moving picture, and it involves certain things that just, it's a lot more work than a lot of people think it is. Therefore, whatever scale that you do it at, it's nice to operate with some sort of respect for everyone's time and energy and what they're giving and what they said they'd give, so that you don't feel taken advantage of. Culturally, it's like it's like camp, like you're in a camp, especially if it's a sleepaway, but I think it's the most team building job that I've been a part of, because every working person needs to be there in order to help make this finished product. And because of that, I really love the camaraderie, and that's also helped me make friends. But the better you are as a team, it's like you're running a ship. So the better everyone is at their individual part, it'll just move better and you'll get to your destination. And the winds might move you to somewhere like slightly off, but as long as you have like someone steering the ship, that's usually the director, and then everyone else working on it and knowing what they're doing and also feeling good about what they're doing and confident, that'll just help move things along. And I've been on sets where no one cares about what we're shooting, and they're like the longest days of my life, but they're usually the shortest days, because they pay the highest, but you're there the shortest. But I feel like I've been there for a week. But I've also been on lower budget shoots where the energy is so high and everyone just feels like we're witnessing creating something altogether. It's such a weird out-of-body experience. And sometimes it's magic and sometimes it's just like amazing, and sometimes it sucks. Either way, it's like being there all together and doing this thing is just, it makes you feel less alone, at least in that day, in that moment. And that's what I really love about filmmaking.
Less alone.
Less alone, because it takes a crew. You can definitely do it by yourself, and there are plenty of people who do it by yourself. And it's just, that's not how the way, I like to do it with a smaller crew, not like instead of doing it just alone. Yeah, it depends on your filmmaking style, but usually for the movies that you see out there, which I've never done any of those blockbuster movies, it takes thousands of people.
What are the elements that go into a project involving people that make it feel magical?
The story is always great and important, but not everyone writes good stories, and it's also hard to write a good story, so we never fault anyone for not writing a good story. But I think when you're there and it becomes very specific to like a scene and there's this one effect you want to do or this one stunt or just capture a moment of acting that just feels so real, those are like some of the magical moments. They're rare because there's a reason why I left being on set all the time. It mostly is a lot of physical labor and not very good sets. I love still doing it, so I do it on my own terms. And that's what I meant by startup year. I'm like on the projects I want to be on, making projects that I want to make.
Are there like certain people qualities that are important to you now?
Like you said, being a go-getter, and I think indecisiveness really turns me off.
Indecisiveness.
When people don't know what they want to do, or more like when people can't give an answer to anything, then I'm like, why just move along? Because for me, I gravitate towards people who have at least a drive to be alive and be curious. Because it really, if someone just sits at home when they go on a trip, maybe that's what they want to do, but I'm more of the type of person who wants to like go check out the places. But everyone's different, so.
I think with that, we should bring your creative partner,
Yeah.
A.J, on. We'll explore like your journey with Haunted Basement and like exploring the business side of it as well.
Here we have A.J. Serrano. He's my creative partner and my partner. And we met as video editors at a media company. And here we are today, 6 years later, making our own things.
Hailey and I have both lived in the city for about
11?
10 years each, but we met 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I have been making movies ever since I was a little kid. My older sister and younger brother and I used to make home movies in our basement. Our basement in Massachusetts really felt like a magical space. After 10 plus years of working in entertainment, both in Los Angeles and then in New York City, or it was around like the pandemic years, I had got laid off from a long time video editor job, and I was like, I hit my early 30s and I was like, it is time to do what I've always wanted to do, which is make my own films. And my siblings were very supportive of it, and they helped build this LLC, this Haunted Basement Productions LLC, and we started a podcast. And then in 2023, that's when I had this idea for the short film Night Train. Hailey was the first one I sent the script to, and she was like, this is great, let's make it. And her being someone outside of my family, the first person outside of my family saying, this is great, we should make it, just infused so much confidence in me. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And ever since then, ever since like 2023, when we shot that, the company has started to grow more and more to the point where a friend of mine like asked us to produce his short film. And that's just how it just starts with little project that you're interested in, that comes from your heart, that just builds and builds to something where we're trying to make Haunted Basement something where we release movies in theaters.
Haunted Basement is not exclusively producing horror films, but I am curious, what is special about the genre of horror? And for your first two short films, what is captivating to you about these ideas?
Well, for me, I was a scaredy cat most of my life when it came to movies. Even though I love movies, my imagination already runs wild. So movies and seeing it on screen and hearing it stay with me a longer time than it would normally, I guess. But I think maybe after meeting A.J, so maybe 6 years ago, and I think when I introduced myself to you, when we started talking a little more, I told you that I don't like horror movies, and you're just like, cool. And then he saw my website and saw all my drawings, because I have these drawings because I love doodling, and I did Inktober, and they're all like ghost related or skeletons and then so AJ messages or tells me at the office, like, you said you don't like horror, and he sends me a screenshot of like a picture I drew, and he's like, this is horror. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that made me more confident to explore that side, and I guess the darker side, which is not even that dark to me, but it's just a whole genre that I was afraid of, and now it opened up, as a movie lover, a whole genre of films that I'm not as scared to watch because I have more of like, I guess it's already in me a little bit. And that led me to going through my own film school of watching a lot more horror movies just purely out of interest and the creativity of a horror movie not needing to have the same budget or star and seeing what people make. It's just much more free of a medium. So that's my journey with the horror, which is more 6 years now.
These like early magical moments for me of watching movies as a kid, being terrified. I remember watching like Men in Black as a kid, and it's not a scary movie, but there are scary parts to a 7-year-old watching them. And for me to be able to remember how I felt when I watched that at age 7, and now at the age of 35, I'm like, there's like an activeness to watching horror movies that does not exist as much in watching other movies. It's almost like an exorcism of, okay, I was scared of this as a kid, but if I make it, then I have control over my fear, or I can like understand fear a bit more because I'm manipulating the action on screen.
You're lifting the curtain.
Yes.
You're looking behind the curtain, seeing the mechanics of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what draws me to it.
Maybe it's just like Batman. You gotta hang out with the bats to face your fears. So leading to Haunted Basement, our short film, all these themes that we share, similar feelings towards fear, and thinking that in order to be afraid, you have to have some part of your brain and your body be open to the unknown. And that, as we get older, kind of goes away. And it's more like a protective mechanism, and you become more realistic. But I think it's important to have that wonder, and that's what we're trying to explore with the short film Haunted Basement, of a kid who is afraid, like too old to be afraid of certain things, but they're still afraid of the dark, and trying to explore that and saying that it's not a bad thing.
You guys were just talking about the economics of the film industry. You mentioned like a studio model where it's at today. Can you maybe like describe for people who aren't in this industry how people make money, if people are making money? What are like some of the challenges today?
Do you want to go, AJ? You know more film history than I do.
Well, it seems like there's a small percentage of people who are making money in the studio system who are already established. And then for people like Hailey and me, we've realized that we just have to build our own thing. So there are people who, they build a following on TikTok or YouTube, and they build channels that are profitable through that. That's still a small percentage of people. But it does seem like nowadays, where a studio system has basically collapsed, that you have to find your own audience. And that's what Hailey and I have been trying to do over the last couple of years, build a small audience who likes the things that we're interested in.
In the past, how did the studio model work in theory and in practice, and what's caused it to sort of like break down today?
So back in like the 30s and 40s, the studios owned everything. The directors and actors really didn't have any say in the projects that they were working on, but they got paid handsomely for having no say. And also the studios had control over the distribution wing, and they were also loaning out their studio spaces to film at. So they were making money at all steps of the production process and post-production and distribution. And then I think in the late 40s, there was this law called the Paramount Decree, where the government's like, basically the studio system is a monopoly. You have to break up. You can't own your distribution wing anymore. And then slowly over the last 60, 70 years, the studio system has lost more and more power. Unions also grew in strength, so it became more expensive to employ crew members, to the point where we saw in the last couple of years where SAG had this huge strike that was very heartwarming to watch. But now, 2 years later, we realize that the studio system has responded to that by basically not employing American film workers, but going overseas for production. But Hailey and I are like, we still love movies. We still want to make movies. And movies are made no matter what social climate you are in. Back in World War II, the French, who I believe were like occupied by Nazi Germany, they were still churning out movies while like under that threat. So I've been thinking lately over the last year, like if they can do that under that threat, we can figure out how to make something that we like, a movie that we want to make under our circumstances.
Yeah, what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced so far? This is your second movie.
We made a short film together 2 years ago now, and that's a film that AJ wrote and directed and produced, and then I produced and did graphics and whatever else we needed. And we had such a rush of it being our first short film that's our own, not other people's, and at a budget that's much higher than we did on our smaller projects. So it was all very exciting and a success. And now we're here in our sophomore year, basically realizing that going a different route to find the financing, not through your community, but through private funding has changed.
Well, yeah, we crowdfunded the first one.
We crowdfunded the first one, and we were so heartwarmed by the response and that we were able to raise all that money. But shortly after the first film, we decided we're not going to do that again because we can't ask that from the same people, and we don't want to do the same thing, and there's a different way to go about it. So at the start of our second short film, and this one we wrote together and we're directing it together and producing together, and we're discovering after 8 months of trying to finance through a private route that it's so much more that we didn't know. So we're learning a lot, and we haven't found much success, but we're learning so much more, meeting many people, but it's taking much longer to reach our goal than our first short film.
What is the incentive for someone to invest in films? In the startup world, or in like the tech startup world, investors are making bets that of the 1,000 companies that you invest in, one is gonna return the entire portfolio. And so like the way the model works is it's like a lottery hit-based model. Contrast that with film. What are investors seeking to do actually? Is there a business model? Like what does it look like?
We've been asked this question a lot by the investors, potential investors this year, and it varies person to person, but a lot of people want to eventually make money from the sale of it, whether it be streaming or theatrical release. Because of that, a lot of people are looking for feature films, not short films, which is what AJ and I are making, because that's the idea we have right now. And we say, just let's make it, we have this, let's go. But because there isn't much of a return usually, people ask about the feature, which is in the works. Even for feature films, it's not guaranteed. So it's more of a gamble, which is why a lot of filmmakers, especially these days, are struggling to find financiers because it's a gamble. So you got to find the right person, I guess, who is willing to take that bet. But also, I was going to say one more thing. Yeah.
Well, so we know that it's a gamble. Also, what you were describing, where you're like sort of like it's a lottery-based thing where you're relying on one or two hits. That's how the studio system works too. Like Barbie and Oppenheimer were two films that single-handedly lifted the American film industry a couple years ago. So it works at like the biggest budget levels. But we realized that a short film is rarely going to make back its budget. It's more so people want to get involved with short films more so for the clout of it, being involved. Having your name pop up first in the credits, opening credits. And then also we realized that we need to learn the producer game a bit more for this project and figure out like the tax implications of financing a film. We realized that we could collaborate with a nonprofit, the Gotham. And so all of the donations or all the contributions to our short film will be tax deductible to the person who donates. So that's something that was like could be an advantage for someone who maybe they're not going to make their money back, but they could put their tax money to something that they'd rather put their tax money to.
And get to show it off to their friends.
Yes.
So it's like almost a win-win, hopefully, for them. It's what we're aiming to do with the nonprofit.
And finally, it's like we're not just trying to make short films. We're building up towards, we're trying to build up a production company that makes feature films that release theatrically and make money. Right now we're just looking for someone who really believes in the stories that we want to tell, this particular story, and is sort of in it for the long run of like, maybe this one doesn't make money, but you guys have talent and you guys have a vision.
The production company is the same name as the short films, Haunted Basement Productions, and that's made by AJ and his two siblings. And with that company, we've been trying to meet as many more filmmakers as we can just to build a community. Because like I said earlier, it's so important to have a community, but also see like what people are starting to create and what ideas that they have, because we just want to make things that we all gravitate towards and feel strongly about. So we're producing our other friend's short film, and that one we're just producers on it, and that's the first time doing that, and we're so excited and feel just as strongly as our own like written directing projects.
And it's not a horror film. We're not just making.
Yeah, because even though it's haunted basement, AJ and his siblings grew up in Massachusetts. It's a very, I believe, after visiting several times now, that's a very haunted place. So they're so into that, but it's haunted basement productions. It's just more of the curiosity aspect of anything can happen in the basement, but not just horror films. We do love horror, but we also love all types of movies. Mm-hmm. So our next one with our friend is a dramedy.
Yeah, so I think just closing questions for the two of you. What is someone, dead or alive, who inspires you? Maybe separate answers, or if you converge on the same answer, that'd be crazy. But yeah.
I mean, it's Steven Spielberg, definitely. Like my whole life, I've been inspired by him. Someone who like seems like he's been able to translate his dreams onto a screen, which is just so inspiring. Like his movies. They have a magic quality to it that I will always aspire to try to create in my own movies.
And I guess for me, I'm more of in the existential or trying to figure out who I am part of that, because I used to have a lot of people I looked up to and icons, but for the last 5-6 years, I think I kind of let go of that desire to become someone or become like someone, even though I used to be very influenced. And since then, I feel more of like a who am I, meaning who do I gravitate towards? And it happens to actually be people in my actual life. Like one person is sitting over there recording us, and it's people like that really inspire me, because it's more achievable because you know them and you hear their stories. But of course, I love huge filmmakers and artists. I do really admire their work and they influence me, but not in a way that the people in my life have.
Yeah, give me an example
of
people in your life.
Well, I said the guy over there, his name is Ant Hull.
Yep.
Anthony Hull, side projects.
Yep.
He is just someone we met 2 years ago. It was just a friend of a friend, or our mutual friend connected us because Ant was he's a director, he was looking for an editor. And so we met up to have coffee, and it was like we knew each other all our lives. Almost like we're just siblings, that's what it felt like. And since then, it's just having similar values and a drive, but also ups and downs that are very understandable to each other, and always chasing after what we're trying to do, but also being open about how it's really hard, how it sucks. Like that type of stuff really inspires me, especially when they end up making stuff where, even in their personal lives, achievements really inspire me. So that's like the number one person, because I guess he's also right next to me, but all of the last, since I've met him, I've never named someone so much in a convo to people who don't know him.
When you do describe Ant, how do you describe him to people?
His name is Ant, but he's like the tallest person I know, and he has like an equally the largest heart, because he's a tall guy, but it also translates to being so compassionate and open, and also about community and trying to live a good life and surround yourself with good people, and we all want to make the dream big movies, and we have that dream still, but are also very much in the day-to-day of each other and supporting each other, especially when it's rough, because life, it goes up and down, but I think that type of community-oriented person opened my world to so many other people, but also just made my life so much more better as a filmmaker as well.
Anything you want to say, AJ, or around Spielberg or Ant or inspiration?
I also love Spielberg, but my I love Spielberg too. I'm a Spielberg head as well, and thanks to AJ, we went to see Spielberg speak after a screening of Sugarland Express. And that was incredible. I never thought I'd see him because he's getting older and older, but I was so happy to see him there. But my thing for me, my Spielberg is more of a James Cameron, because Titanic is it's the movie that made me think you can sink a ship for a living. I didn't realize that you could kind of do anything with movies as long as you have an idea and the right people behind you.
And David Lynch too, someone who just sort of showed that you can make movies that are strange and uncomfortable and prickly, but they still are so emotionally resonant, because he's just exploring stuff that most people feel like, or is it like inappropriate to explore or just shameful. But he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And he just did it with such integrity. And I miss him.
Yeah. Integrity and also such kindness. I've never heard anything bad about him as a person, and because I've experienced not great people on set, it's really important to have, it's so cool to have someone who's now passed but has influenced so many people, and he's not a bad person. He was always about making sure people feel good and confident, boosting people up, which is, we love people, hype people up, and also curious about everything, staying curious.
To wrap it up, where can people go to support you and check out Haunted Basement?
We mentioned our nonprofit, that's Through the Gotham, and we'll have a link somewhere in our bio for that, and that's where you can donate if you want to chip in to help reach our budget to make our film this September. And then there's also our Instagram, or Haunted Basement Productions Instagram.
The Instagram is at _hauntedbasement_, or you can go on our website, hauntedbasement.video. You can watch a bunch of other films that we've made, including Night Train.
Yeah, go to Gotham and follow you guys on Instagram. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Shout out Side Project.
Side project.
Shout out Haunted Basement. Shout out Halal. Who else do we have to shout out?
Shapeshift.
Shout out Shapeshift.